DJ, we had a very, very, very alarming phone call right before the start of this podcast, and you informed me that you were going to spend between $300 to $400
Easy.
this afternoon on a couples massage and dinner with your wife. I'm going to give you just a couple seconds to try to explain yourself here.
Well, so technically it was our 5-year anniversary last weekend, but we were moving, so we're celebrating it this weekend. But it's a lot of fucking money.
You know what I think is happening here?
But
I think it's so close to football season, and you are so excited for football that you're not going to have time for your wife. So you are about to pay another man to touch your wife so that you can just watch football. Knock if you're with me.
we're we're actually going out with another couple tonight too.
Let's get loaded. Because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first, because we finish last.
Oh, thank you once again for listening. I am Ben Morgan. That is DJ Primo. And if you are a potential sponsor looking for a podcast to sponsor, by all means, please choose us because DJ is going to go broke, man. That's a couples massage and dinner. And you could have paid for tickets to a Packers game.
Sex.
Prostitution's a real thing, folks, even when you're married. Well, welcome back to the Loaded Box Podcast. As I said, I am Ben Morgan. That is DJ Primo. We're going to get this one out of the way today because DJ's got plans tonight. Hopefully his wife doesn't get hopefully she gets the right level of intoxicated so that you actually do score a little bit after paying that much. But we are back talking 2019 fantasy football rankings. We are going to be starting off our wide receivers in this episode, specifically wide receivers that are ranked 13 through 24. Like we've been doing our entire time during these rankings, we're not dissecting each player individually. We're going to actually put these players in hypothetical situations and bring up certain questions about them compared to the other people in their, basically that are next to them in their ADPs, and then go through what might actually happen during your draft with these players. So DJ, the players that we are going to be bringing up today: Amari Cooper, Stefon Diggs, Julian Edelman, Brandin Cooks, Robert Woods, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Lockett, AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, and Calvin Ridley. So DJ, I'm actually going to start these rankings off with a little bit of trivia. Are you ready?
I guess.
And by the way, folks, if you are listening on iTunes or Google Play or something, you are actually missing. I encourage you to keep listening that way. But this one episode in general, I think you should switch over to YouTube because DJ is forced to podcast outside today, and it's hot out, so he's flashing that dad bod. So he's a little topless right now. And apparently it's too hot and sunny. He is holding an umbrella over his head. This is by far the strangest podcast that I've ever been a part of. And we've been a part of some strange podcasts.
Under my umbrella.
I gotta finish it. Ella, A.
I like to just leave you right on the cusp of climax and just cut you off.
That's what your wife's gonna do to you tonight.
Probably.
All right, I'm gonna start you off with a little trivia. So, of the receivers that I just listed, one of these players has finished wide receiver 13, 12, 9, and 14th over the last 4 years, and he's currently being drafted as a mid-4th rounder. Before guessing, just based on that information, would you feel safe taking that receiver in the middle of the 4th round? And then after you're done saying yes or no, try to take a guess on who it is.
The middle of the 4th round, he's finished 13, 12, 9, and 14?
Yep.
Fuck yeah, I'd be comfortable taking that guy there.
And who is your guess as to who you think that is?
Brandin Cooks.
Ding, ding, ding. I told you not to study for this podcast.
I didn't study.
How did you come about that answer?
I think I saw something about it on Twitter 2 days ago with those numbers.
Well, that's impressive. So I actually kind of put you as a person who wasn't a huge Brandin Cooks fan this year. But yeah, you look at those numbers, especially in that offense he's in, where they have so many fantasy relevant players. It's you want people on teams that score a lot of points, and that's what the Rams are, and that's what Brandin Cooks does. But yeah, how is he lasting until the middle of the 4th? The worst he's finished is wide receiver 14.
I have a text. I'm looking for a text I literally sent today, and I was sending a guy who has a draft today. I have a buddy or a friend that I kind of work with. He's actually the president of a company that's we own. But anyways, he is got a 12-hour draft today that starts at 11 a.m. and he likes to know who I like. And I sent him a list of guys, and I put Brandon Cooks, and next to him in parentheses I put great value pick.
Yeah.
Because of where he's going in the 4th round. So it's like I haven't liked Brandon Cooks in the past because I think he's been way overdrafted, or I thought he was going to be overdrafted. But going now in the 4th round, where people are just all of a sudden forgetting about him because Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Todd Gurley exists, I think it's just absurd, especially with the second year in that offense getting paid what he's getting paid. That's unbelievable. I would snag him up in the 4th round. Shit.
I'm all about
running backs.
Yeah, I'm all about that. And one of the things that's super confusing about this is it almost seemed like there was an issue with Brandon Cooks because he went from the Saints, found success but got dealt. Went to the Patriots, found success but got dealt. And now he's off to the Rams and he's still continuing to find this success. It's super puzzling to me why teams were so willing to part ways with this guy. It's almost like they feel like he's super replaceable. And I don't know that that's the case. I didn't know how really consistent of a fantasy wide receiver he was until I looked up those stats. And now that I know it, man, I would jump all over Cooks in the 4th round right now. I love that pick. That's such value.
You jump those bones?
I'm jumping those bones. You on to the next one?
On to the next one.
All right, well, a pair of Bengals, A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, right next to each other right now in ADP. Green is going as the 3rd pick in the 5th. Boyd is going as the 6th pick in the 5th. If both of these guys are on the board in the 5th round, you're on the clock and you need a wide receiver. Which of these two guys are you taking?
Is neither an answer?
I'm forcing your hand here just because someone's going to be in this situation and they're going to want your topless advice.
I'm going to take Tyler Boyd just for the straight fact that I don't, even when he comes back after potentially the month, maybe a little more. But, he's going to be gone for probably 4 games. Even when he comes back after that, A.J. Green, I don't trust him to stay healthy. At that point, it's a lower body injury. He's getting older, something that's probably going to nag him. They'll probably push too early and try to get back right away, and I don't trust that. Not with a guy who's getting older.
Right,
and has had a history of leg injuries.
Recently, especially recently. And another reason I asked this one is because we're in a league that you only get points via touchdowns, touchdown-only league. It's something of ancient times, but I love doing it, so we keep doing it. Anyway, I was doing my rankings, and I literally didn't know where to rank these guys. I ended up putting them back to back, and I gave the slight edge to Boyd, literally because of the same thing you just said. Yeah, A.J. Green is the better option. He's the better fantasy player. He's proven that he can get it done at a wide receiver 1 level his entire career. But man, that lower leg injury, who's to say, even say he does take 3-4 weeks off and comes back, it does not take much to retweak that. When you're not playing in rec league, you are going 100% on every single play. Dude, at that age, at that position, that shit can snap at any time. And if you took A.J. Green, you literally might have wasted a 5th rounder. I don't know that you can touch him before the 6th or 7th.
No, because he can potentially be a second wide receiver on a team that you just drafted him in that round.
Right.
And a guy who's not going to play for 4 games. He should not be a second wide receiver right now on anybody's team. He just should. I can understand grabbing him as a little bit later, maybe 2-3 rounds later, as hopefully getting him back and having that guy that can bust out, obviously be a number 1 wide receiver. But I'm not ballsy enough to grab him and then hope that and miss a guy that could potentially just bust out around that area.
For the non-YouTube listeners, DJ, you shed the umbrella. What happened there? Did the sun go down?
Sun's under the clouds right now, so it's blessing us. It's actually really nice now.
I think DJ got self-conscious. That's what I'm going to wrap it up to.
No, I will pick that fucker right back up as soon as the sun comes out. I promise you that. I don't get self-conscious.
I love it. So, DJ, do you remember how Doug Baldwin was just consistently this low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2, basically for several years with Russell Wilson?
Correct.
Now he's completely out of the picture. Tyler Lockett is stepping into the role as the team's top wide receiver. Do you think Tyler Lockett will match the output Baldwin was producing and be a steal at his current ADP? He's currently going as the 5th pick, or the 2nd pick in the 5th round.
Maybe not match. it because of pure consistency. Doug Baldwin is just like Larry Fitzgerald type of consistency, right?
Right.
I think Tyler Lockett's more. He's being drafted in the correct spot, but he's not that guy you're going to go to every third down or whatever. But he's going to be your Tyreek Hill, huge play, 30-point game every now and then. But with Russell Wilson, he's going to have more. He's going to have less lows than I think what you see out of Tyreek Hill does with Tyler Lockett. So I think the consistency will be better than like a Tyreek Hill, but the big point games won't be as high as Tyreek Hill's either.
Yep.
So it's kind of right in that mid-range area. I think he's exactly where he should go, but he's not Doug Baldwin, but he is the number one wide receiver for Russell Wilson, so he should be treated as such.
I'd like to disagree with that, just to give us a little bit more back and forth on that one, but I think you nailed it. How I see Tyler Lockett is he's that receiver that you draft on your team, and you're not really all that comfortable, or he's not like a flashy name, and not a guy that you want to try to bank on. That's exactly how Doug Baldwin was, and he constantly and consistently just put up numbers. And I think you nailed it with Tyler Lockett. Last year, he was sort of like there'd be weeks where he wouldn't have all that much, and then boom, he'd go off for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. So there is a little Tyreek to his game. But like you said, in that offense, now that he's emerged, he's going to have to be the go-to guy at wide receiver. He's going to be more and more consistent. I'm actually a little shocked that he's lasting into the 5th round. I think he's more of a 4th round kind of guy.
That's an unbelievable value there in the 5th round, going behind Godwin and Galladay.
Right.
When he's and Robert Wood, just being the number one guy there with Russell Wilson, it usually pans out well, especially with the way he ended last year.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's unbelievable value, and it's just a guy that, like I said, you're going to put him in your starting lineup, and it's almost going to look like whoever your opponent is, like when you look at like matchups, who has the advantage, it's going to look like the other guy probably has the advantage. But Tyler Lockett can get it done. It's the same kind of deal like what Doug Baldwin was doing all those years as well. So got to agree with you on that one. I'll move on to the next one here. So Calvin Ridley is going at the very back end of the wide receiver twos right now, according to his ADP. Would you take any of these next 3 guys that are behind Ridley right now in ADP over him? These players include DJ Moore, Mike Williams, and Jarvis Landry.
Yeah.
Which one or which ones?
I was kind of like down on Mike Williams, but the more I've just seen him in, I was a huge Mike Williams guy last year, and then I wanted to like bring it down a little bit with Hunter Henry coming back. But the more I watch him and the way he played last year in some of those games where he just took over, they legit have 2 number 1 wide receivers in LA, and Mike Williams is obviously one of them. So I'm just the other day I texted you. I'm super high on Mike Williams. Like he just vaulted up probably like 10 spots for me. I love Mike Williams, so 100% him. I think I would take all of them over.
Oh my gosh,
I don't
really?
like Matt Ryan. I don't like Matt Ryan. I would question more DJ Moore. I would definitely take Jarvis Landry. DJ Moore would be tough for me to take just because of the offense that he's in there. Everybody's got a big boner over Curtis Samuel, which I'm not gonna fall into that talk. I ain't about that life. But Jarvis Landry for sure. DJ Moore would be more of a question, but I don't like Matt Ryan. I don't like him. I don't trust him. He's still got to deal. Sanu's still there, right? So he's still got to deal with Sanu and Hooper and Freeman and obviously Julio.
Okay, so now we can finally disagree here. So I'll play the game. If I have to pick one, I'm going to pick Mike Williams. I like Jarvis Landry in fantasy. I'm fine with that. But I think if you're debating between the two, in fantasy, you want touchdowns. And yeah, touchdowns are like almost impossible to predict. But man, Mike Williams has proven to like be a red zone threat, to be a deep threat, to be a touchdown scorer. Jarvis Landry, and I'm pretty certain on this, has really only had one season where he was like consistently producing touchdowns. And that's it. His thing has just been catches, like 9 catches a game for 38 yards. Like, that's your Jarvis Landry stat line. That dude is just a catching machine, but he's not like a consistent touchdown guy. So I'll give Mike Williams the slight edge there. But my answer is none of the guys, because I am, as you personally know, I am all in on Calvin Ridley. I am targeting him at that current ADP, but I will target him above that. I'm actually predicting Calvin Ridley is going to finish as a high-end wide receiver 2. I almost want to say low-end wide receiver 1, but Julio Jones and his 1,400 yards and anywhere from 1 to 7 touchdowns is going to get in my way. Calvin's going to hit 1,000 yards most likely. He'll flirt with double-digit touchdowns. He's going to be a more consistent week-to-week wide receiver than he was his rookie year. I'm all in on Calvin Ridley. If I can tell people that haven't had their fantasy draft one thing yet, it's bump Calvin Ridley up on those draft boards. You're not going to regret it. You're going to thank me later. Knock on wood if you're with me.
If he finishes higher than he will not finish better than wide receiver 20. I will lock that in. I will guarantee he does not finish high. I believe that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen can both finish as top 12 wide receiver 1s. I honestly think that can happen. Calvin Ridley, I do not trust. I don't trust that offense. I don't trust anybody anywhere in Atlanta that has to deal with Matt Ryan. He finishes 20 or lower.
I think we've got a bet, and I think if he finishes 19 or higher, you have to finish 10 beers in a single podcast.
10 beers in a single podcast?
It might be a long podcast. As DJ sips his beer right now.
That's way too many. That's way too many. I'll do 6 beers in a single podcast.
All right, it's a bet. Write it down. Put it in your phone.
Well, then what about you, though?
Same deal. 6 beers.
Lock it in.
All right, before we go on to the next question, I want to tell you about Pristine Auction real quick because we're going to be doing another giveaway through them as the podcast sponsor before the 2019 NFL season. But in the meantime, you can get an extra $5 put towards any item that you win at pristineauction.com by entering the code LOADED in the registration code field when you create your account. They've got daily auctions, week-long auctions, tons of stuff for all sports for the man cave. So head over to pristineauction.com. DJ, this next question, let's assume that you're picking near the middle of your draft order. So if you're in a 12-team league, like in that 6, 7, 8 range, let's say in the first 2 rounds you go running back, and then in the 3rd round, Amari Cooper is the best wide receiver available, and you take him as your wide receiver 1. Are you happy with how your draft strategy played out, or are you wishing you would have grabbed a better wide receiver in round 1 or 2?
I personally, again, I'm not a big Amari Cooper in the Dallas offense fan. I like Amari Cooper, so don't pin me up as this Amari Cooper hater. I'm more of a Dak Prescott hater. Don't like him. I can't stand a guy who's asking for $40 million who's worth 20. You know, after getting a $30 million offer, that's ridiculous. I don't know who he thinks he is, but fucking Tony. If they should just say no. Let him go bring Tony Romo back and watch him win more games than Dak Prescott. I honestly think that could happen. I think he can do that. I think he has that ability.
I vote no to that, though, because Tony Romo is so brilliant in the broadcast booth. He's a better broadcaster than quarterback. You agree? Knock on wood if you're with me.
He's more like, I don't know, he's exciting. I kind of love listening to him. Like, yeah. I get angry, but I love it at the same time because it sounds like he's like taking a big shit at times. Like he just can't get it out. Or something like that. But
it does.
It is enjoyable. I can't really. It's entertaining. That's for goddamn sure.
Absolutely.
My wide receiver 1 in the 3rd round, you said?
Yep.
I don't think I'd be happy with it, but he's probably not the guy I'd be targeting at that spot.
Gotcha. Before I answer, man, I just hope when I knock on this wood that it's not like super annoying because I don't know how that noise is going to play out. If it's bad, we'll edit it, so you probably didn't hear this. But my answer, and man, I think if that was my strategy, because I have that pick in a draft, and I'm really considering going running back, and then I look at it and say, man, if Amari Cooper is the best wide receiver available, I feel like that strategy might have failed me. And I'm with you. I'm a Cooper believer, but I'm also a Dak believer when it comes to fantasy football. And I'm still a little hesitant on that. I like the idea of my fantasy team having like a full-fledged top 6 to 8 wide receiver. I almost feel like I'm playing from behind if I don't have that. So while I love the idea of getting a guy like Le'Veon Bell and coming back with like a Dalvin Cook, or I don't even want to say like maybe like a James Conner won't be there. Let's say Leonard Fournette. Let's say I love having that tandem at running back, But man, if I'm coming back with Amari Cooper, I feel like I'm playing from behind already. So I don't know if you can have that strategy with that draft pick.
You know what's crazy is I'm looking at the receivers going in the third round. You're looking at Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Brandon Cooks, guys we were just talking about, and Antonio Brown. Please let that. I hate Antonio Brown as a person, but let that ADP just keep dropping because I will snatch that up real fucking quick. If he fell to the third round,
can't happen.
I mean, I don't think I'd let him get that far personally.
So you take him before that, yeah.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
This next player that we're going to talk about. So this next guy missed the game last year, still caught 9 touchdowns, still went over 100 catches, still went over 1,000 yards, finished as wide receiver 11. Now he's going late third, early fourth in drafts, and that's Stephon Diggs. How confident are you in Diggs from a fantasy perspective this season, and what's the earliest you would take him? He's currently going as the very last pick in the third round as the umbrella comes back out.
What's the earliest I would take him?
How confident are you in him this year? Do you want him on your team? And then where was the earliest you take him? His current ADP is last pick, third round.
I am more comfortable with Stephon Diggs than I am with Adam Thielen.
Wow.
I think Adam Thielen it seemed like he slowed down a lot at the end of last year. He got it figured out. He's white, not black like Stephon. That's always a bump up.
Well, he was like setting records like the first 9 weeks of the season.
Exactly. But then, he starts to figure it out, a little bit. Maybe they start double teaming him a little bit more. Who knows what was going on? I mean, I'm sure people know, but I feel more comfortable draft. I think Stephon Diggs is the more talented wide receiver. That's why I'm going to. I am comfortable drafting Stephon Diggs at that spot, maybe even a little bit higher. I'm a big Stephon Diggs fan. I hate the Vikings, but what the hell is going on with my mic here? Sorry.
That's what happens when you podcast outside. You got to deal with nature, man. The elements come into play. That's why we're professionals.
My volume is all over the place because it was like between my leg and the arm of the chair, and it was just jumping everywhere.
A place that your wife won't be tonight.
How confident am I in Diggs? I'm very confident. I'm less confident in Thielen. I'm more confident in Stephon Diggs for sure.
Interesting. Well, we'll definitely talk Thielen more on that next episode when we talk about wide receivers 1 through 12. But man, I'm confident in Diggs. I'm confident in Cousins. I'm confident in the Vikings offense in general. And I am comfortable taking Stephon Diggs literally like right after Adam Thielen, which puts him basically like a full round ahead. So instead of going as the last pick in the third round, I believe Thielen is currently going as the first pick in the third round. So if I had like the second, third, fourth pick in the third round, I would be all over Stephon Diggs at that point. I didn't realize how many touchdowns he had last year. 9 touchdowns when you already were playing with Thielen, who was near double-digit touchdowns and who had all those yards and catches. And we're looking at an offense with Kirk Cousins, who a lot of people thought fell flat last year and it was a disappointment. I think they're going to be even better this next year. Dude, I'm all on Thielen. I'm all on Diggs. I don't know if I can get talked out of that combo.
You're confident in Kirk Cousins, who finished as QB 12 with Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen.
First year with them.
Great numbers, and I people are just getting more and more used to him in an offense that just isn't in. It's just not his type of offense. They like the play action. And Case Keenum was better in that offense than Kirk Cousins was. It's not. He wants to be running out of shotgun. They want to run it and use play action, and that's where Kirk Cousins does not. He's not. I just don't think he's as good in that type of offense. I think it's just going to get worse. I think it's going to be worse.
But I think
he doesn't score touchdowns in the red zone. It's ridiculous.
They changed offensive coordinators during the season last year. So they have a whole new offensive strategy. Dalvin Cook is healthy. I think they're going to have a nice mix. That's a team that should run the ball. They definitely should with Dalvin Cook. I get that point. But he's not going to be the end-all, be-all. So, yeah, Cousins, Diggs, Thielen, sign them up. I want the whole damn team.
I don't.
Let's move on to Julian Edelman. He's currently going at 4.03 as wide receiver 15. Do you think Gronk retiring helps or hinders Edelman's fantasy value? And I'll add to that because yesterday we learned Josh Gordon is going to be reinstated and eligible for week 1. So do you like Edelman still in the 4th round, or with all these new things coming on with Gordon back in the mix, is that too early for you as wide receiver 15?
Tell me what's different from when Gronk was playing to when he wasn't.
Here's the thing, and I agree, and I think maybe this is where you're going with it, but they were so used to Rob Gronkowski being injured and not playing all that much anyways, so I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference.
Exactly. That is where I'm going with it. Gronk doesn't play like that often, so it's the same thing. It's just that he's not on the team anymore at all. Either way, he probably wasn't going to be on the field that much. Julian Edelman is that Doug Baldwin type guy that we were talking about earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gets underdrafted, it seems like, every single year, and he probably finishes typically top 12, 14 every year just because, especially PPR-wise. Like,
right.
PPR, you're vaulting him way up because he's going to catch the ball a ton, 3 yards on the field, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also going to get, I mean, how many times do you see the Patriots outside the 10-yard line? That's also where they run those little rub screen outs, little rub routes where Julian Edelman's running out and he's somehow always open for a touchdown. So, like, he's still finishing probably. I mean, he's probably scratching the surface as a wide receiver one most years, and Gronk there or not there doesn't really make much of a difference to me.
Yeah, and I actually think a lot of the targets that were going to be going to Gronk when he was playing, I think a lot of those are going to be going to the running backs. Like James White is already a reception machine. Sony Michel has proven he can get it done out of the backfield. They're always going to be doing those short passes. It's going to be a lot of Edelman. Every once in a while, you're going to get a throw outside of the numbers to N'Keal Harry. Now insert Josh Gordon. I think at this point I don't know enough. We don't know enough as to really where he is as a player and mentally. Like, yeah, he's reinstated. He's allegedly eligible for week 1. You got to tread lightly on that one. He's one mistake away from boom, just being right back to where he was on Thursday of last week, which was not instated. So I don't know that you can let the idea of Gronk retiring and or Josh Gordon being back in the mix impact where you're going to take Edelman, because end of the day, Edelman is the consistent option at wide receiver on that team. You got to target him over Gordon, over N'Keal Harry, anything like that. Any of the wide receivers, you have to be confident in Edelman over all those guys.
So Julian Edelman missed the first 4 games last year.
Yep.
Remember that, right?
Yep.
And he finished as wide receiver number 20 with missing 4 games.
Yeah.
He had, let's see here, let me just look real quick. He had 207 points. 4 games, let's say he averages 10 points. In those 4 games, that's 40 more points. So let's say he has 247. If he finishes with 247, he finishes as wide receiver. Oops. Oh, fuck. I was doing so good, too.
Now that you lost that webpage, you just got to lie. Say it confidently and lie.
I got it. He finishes as wide receiver 13 ahead of Brandon Cooks right behind Keenan Allen.
And
if it's only 10 points.
Exactly what I was going to say. And that's a conservative 10 points. Like, that's not this is my favorite podcast of all time. Now DJ is shirtless, lost the umbrella, and he's eating pizza.
If my wife brought the pizza to me, you know I'm getting banged tonight.
especially after that dude gives her that massage and gets her all warmed up for you.
Goddamn right.
You damn right.
Somebody better warm her up for me. I'm not putting in that fucking work.
That's a lot of work, man.
My fingers and wrists get tired.
After podcasting all day and eating pizza, I know. All right, man. Chris Godwin and Kenny Golladay are currently going as wide receivers 17 and 18. So, DJ, in 30 seconds, tell me why you're taking Chris Godwin over Golladay if you're on the clock and you need a wide receiver. And then I'll do the same when you're done, but I'll take the Golladay side of it.
All right, 2 reasons why. Kenny Golladay plays with Matt Stafford. I have stated that I don't think Stafford is playing much longer than this. I think that it's a down year. Kenny Golladay suffers from that. Chris Godwin is now playing with Bruce Arians, and they're going to be throwing it on the field. Chris Godwin's going to be involved. It's going to be a high pass touchdown team that doesn't run in touchdowns. All passing touchdowns this year.
25, 26. You're getting 4 seconds to spare?
All I need.
Time! All right, hey, get the countdown going for me. Tell me when to go.
Go.
Okay, I'm on the Godwin side, or the Golladay side. Jesus, I already lost 7 seconds. The media is overrating this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, 1. Number 2, Kenny Galladay is now the top wide receiver for the Lions. He's by himself. He doesn't have a Mike Evans that's going to account for 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns. And despite what you say about Matt Stafford, yeah, he had a down year last year. He is hands down the better quarterback between him and Jameis Winston.
Time.
Oh, God. I almost had time for one more point. No, I think that's going to be a huge debate this fantasy season because both of those guys coming into the league were just – they weren't like hyped up as like all out wide receiver ones, but there was the hype that eventually 3-4 years down the road, which is where we are now, that they could do that. So yeah, I like them both. I think they both have really nice potential. And I knew that you were on the Godwin side and I knew I was on the Galladay side. So I thought that would be a good way to do it. Man, you are just owning that pizza.
It's a good choice, man. And pizza, this Quick Trip pizza, man, it's legit.
That could be our sponsor to pay for your couples massage.
Goddamn right.
I got one more question for you. Cooper Kupp played in 8 games last year, just 8. Scored 115 fantasy points in half PPR leagues. If you doubled the games he played to 16 and doubled his fantasy points, he'd be at 230 fantasy points. He finishes as wide receiver 10, bumps Robert Woods to wide receiver 11. Let's say we find out Cooper Kupp is 100% by week 1. Which of these two guys, between Kupp and Robert Woods, do you have finishing higher in 2019?
This is probably the biggest issue I've had, honestly, in my brain. Every day. I feel like I think about this almost every day, just chilling at work, and I'm just like, who do I like better, Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods? Because Jared Goff seemed to be in love with Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
That offense is so confusing to me because they have 3 wide receivers who are fantasy relevant, and it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't decided. I don't even know if I can give you a real answer here because I still haven't figured out myself.
Filibustering with a piece of pizza in his hand. I love it.
I've thought about this on a daily basis. I love for Robert Woods, so it shows no bounce. But Cooper Kupp was Cooper Kupp, and his name is Cooper Kupp, and that's a cool name. Like, you can't argue that, right?
What's your made up real stat about Robert Woods?
Robert Woods catches the ball over the middle more than any other person in the entire league. That's what he does.
I love it. No, I'm with you.
It's just facts.
This is a tough question, though. I'm with you on that.
They're going to be fighting for those balls over the middle when Cooper Kupp's out there. I would rank them right now right next to each other.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have one higher than the other. They're like on the same exact plane for me.
It's a tough call. It kind of comes down to like that personal preference because I want to say Cooper Kupp. I had him last year. Before that injury, I think he was like a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. And that's when Gurley was balling out. That was with Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks still putting up really good numbers. What scares me about Cooper Kupp is when these knee injuries happen like midway through the season. It's not like it happened week 1 or 2. Like it was down the line. Recovery times are faster. I will agree to that. But man, it still makes me scared when you're flirting that much with like an injury timeline. I almost have to say that Robert Woods is my pick here because he's still super consistent. There's going to be plenty, even if Cooper Kupp is healthy, there's going to be plenty of targets to go around in that offense. I think we're going to see a reduction in Gurley's touches and running in general. They're going to air it out even more. I think all of those wide receivers are going to be really fantasy relevant. I mean, I think I'm Cooks, Woods, Kupp, and you could literally almost put them in a freaking line. That's how close they are going to be this year.
That's the toughest offense to figure out. That on top of the fact that I do expect some regression out of Jared Goff. I think a lot of that offense is made by Sean McVay.
Mm-hmm.
I think a little bit will be picked up a little bit more. I mean, you watch we all watched the Super Bowl, right? Kind of fucking sucked. Like there was like no scoring. It's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that being a projection for the Rams. They're gonna have good games, but I don't think it's gonna be 40. You know, they were the highest scoring offense we've maybe have seen somewhere in that area between them and the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, they were averaging like mid-30s per week, which was unheard of basically.
I don't imagine it's going to be anywhere close to that. I think they're going to be like 8 points less this year, and I'm a little more worried about the offense in general this year after after that whole game. It's just Jared Goff, I think, is made by Sean McVay, and I think you're going to see a huge regression from Goff this year.
Before we wrap this puppy up, I have a little pregnant wife advice. I'm interested in maybe your feedback here too, because obviously you have a child and you're going on your 5th wedding anniversary where you're letting some other dude do all the work. That's highly commendable. That's a heady play. My pregnant wife advice for this week is if your wife has a certain TV show or a thing that she's into, do not stand in the way of getting in between her and that TV show, because we have DirecTV and she wants to watch it while she's at the gym on the computer, but she needs to sign into our account. But I haven't set up the account, even though for 2 weeks I've been saying that I'm going to do it. Yesterday she asked me, hey, did you get that set up? And I said, no, I just haven't had time. I haven't gotten around to it. And she said, how would you feel if I made it so that you couldn't watch Dolphins games this year? I am legit nervous that if I don't do this, she is going to find every TV cord in this house and they're going to get snipped, which snips me.
I can't wait for the divorce. That's all I can. I'm so excited for hopefully it's better than the wedding, but I'm excited for the divorce coming in the near future here, and we can celebrate that. You can have the baby every other weekend, and it'll be good to go.
Do people have divorce parties? Because I feel like that could be like an epic party.
They actually do. Like it's sometimes bigger than the wedding celebration. I've heard these around the world.
I don't want to be the one that we're celebrating here, but I do want to attend a divorce party in the future. So if any listeners out there are going through this, give us a call. We might show up.
Dude, they legitimately are more happy like getting out of their relationships that they throw just a giant. It's like a bachelor party, basically.
Man, if you went through like 5 half barrels at your wedding, imagine how many you're going to go through at your divorce party.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
You have anything else you want to bring to light today?
Just going to smash this pizza.
Smash this pizza and then let the massager guy do his business.
Touch my wife's butt.
Hey-o. As always, check us out on Twitter at Loaded Box. Check out our website for our latest blogs, fantasy rankings, podcasts. We have it all there at loadedboxpodcast.com. Our next episode will be back doing the same thing, but with wide receivers 1 through 12. Get subscribed, please rate, and please review on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube. However you listen is cool with us. Just get it done. DJ, send us away.
Bye.
Knock on wood if you're with me.